Welcome to the Mismatch. I'm Chris Vernon, and joining me this every week from TheRinger.com is Dave Jacoby. Jacoby!
What's happening, Verno?
Hey, man, it's NCAA tournament time going on, but we still have an NBA season that is taking place. What do you want to start with from last night?
I did want to start with the most impactful performance last night. It was clearly Bronny James, but I don't want to get yelled at by LeBron in the middle of a game while I'm sitting courtside. So we will start with some bad news in the Bay. Not only did the lowly Raptors push the Warriors to the brink, we'll talk about the game in the second, but Steph Curry driving to the hole, goes up in the air, and he didn't just land on his back/butt. He did not break his fall whatsoever with his hands. And the visuals were pretty gnarly of this injury, but it was the sound of his body hitting the floor. It sounded like the crack of a bat. And initially I was just terrified that something was broken or whatever, but he walked into the tunnel on his own power. And there are reports that he wanted to re-enter the game. So what could have been a catastrophic sort of Chet-like injury seems like, and again, I'm not a doctor. I do play basketball with doctors, but it seems like it won't be that big a deal for the Warriors. But it was scary, and it certainly exposed – this is not, groundbreaking analysis, just how important Steph Curry is to that team, because they had a lot of trouble on offense after he came
Well,
out.
and this is one of those moments where, and we're seeing this a lot, and it's part of the reason that it feels like in many cases teams are bubble wrapping stars just to try to get through this last stretch to get to the playoffs, because it's one of those moments where your season flashes before your eyes, right? He goes down, doesn't brace himself. Oh, my God. What if he is badly injured? And everybody is just trying to keep their main components healthy so that they can get into these playoffs. And so as we documented on Monday, when you got this combination of stars and trying to just get them there when we can get to the playoffs, you've got teams that have no interest in winning basketball games. I think what we found is you have got these. There is not a night that has gone by that I do not look at the box scores that evening of games that I was not able to watch, and I'm like, wait, what? And then I have to go figure out what happened in said game. There are crazy outcomes happening every single night in the NBA, and so we've got this weird combination of trying to keep stars healthy, teams trying to lose, and teams that you can't decide whether or not they care a lot about jockeying in the standings nearly as much as they care just trying to make it to the finish line that is the playoffs with their team intact.
Absolutely. And I mean, we'll talk about them in a second, but the Lakers were the biggest, most glaring, obvious example of exactly that. They're like, we are playing nobody at all against whoever
Right.
we're up against ever. And it was one of those games where you're like, look, the slate of games last night looked like it was programmed against the first night of the NCAA tournament. They put some games out there, no huge matchups, no nationally televised games. And I was thinking to myself, well, this Lakers-Bucks game, that'll be fun. And then you find out that Dame's not playing, LeBron's not playing, Reeves isn't playing, and Luke is not playing, and DFS isn't playing, and Vando's not playing. And next thing you know, you got Bronny James going absolutely off. But before we get to Bronny, I want to say this about the Warriors watching the game last night, because I stayed up to watch that one. I just wanted to see the end. And this is not a Steph Curry is out, Jimmy Butler steps up sort of a situation, because Jimmy Butler had a huge block and a huge play. And if you watch the highlights or you look at the box score, you're like, oh, he was pretty good. Jimmy Butler was 1 for 11 in the fourth quarter. Again, this Steph is out. He goes out in the third. Right. And it's like, we traded for Jimmy Butler. We've got a second superstar. Let's have him step up. He didn't make anything in the fourth quarter. And Draymond Green saw what he's going to see a lot of in the playoffs, which is Darko basically being like, hey, Draymond, you want to shoot threes? Shoot threes.
Right.
He shot 14 threes. I think he ended up 5 for 15 or 4 for, I think he was 5 for 14 or whatever. But like, they just let him shoot. And at one point he made one, and him and Darko were kind of smiling and nodding at each other. But like, it was concerning for the Warriors, not just because of Steph's health. And again, I'm not a doctor, but it seems like he will be back. It was just a little concerning that Jimmy couldn't step up in his absence, and they literally left Draymond naked all game long. And while he hit a couple, it certainly felt like something you will see in the playoffs.
I'm going to say this, just like I said when we recorded earlier this week. I find myself watching these games and not knowing if I should take anything out of it or not. I feel like I'm almost being tricked, right? It's like they're not like there's going to be a level of focus, there's going to be a level of intensity, there's going to be a treasure the ball every possession. Like Draymond Green is never taking that many threes in a playoff game. Like that's never happening, right? And so it's like
maybe.
Well, and generally, Jimmy Butler's probably not going 1 for 11 in the fourth quarter of a playoff game if we know that his playoff record is what it is. And so that's the hard part. As like I think we wanted this home stretch to be amazing, especially given the circumstances of the playoffs. But I think we've got, as we chronicled earlier this week, this very bizarre combination of teams that don't clearly, like I think a lot of times you get to the end of the season and there is such a massive difference between who you would draw in the playoffs that you care deeply about your seed. And I think especially in the Western Conference, that is not true. And in the Eastern Conference, we've really had 3 locked for a good amount of time, right? So you've got these other ones. And then obviously, once we get down to, and I know one of the things you had on our rundown is just how beyond disgusting 9 and 10 is, that we're getting to. And it's like, do they even I mean, a lot of times it's like you can get into a situation where 7, 8, 9, 10 are teams that are much, much better than their record would indicate. This happened a few years ago when, by virtue of guys being injured, you ended up and you're Memphis and you're 2, and you look up and you're playing 7, who is the Lakers, and the Lakers are not a 7. Like, that's not.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Same thing happened with the Knicks last year. The Knicks played Embiid and the Sixers last year.
Right.
And they were the 2 seed.
And that's just not the case this year. Those teams that we have down there are not teams that are down there because their season just went awry because of injury. They're down there because they stink. You know what I mean? And it's
I think the Western, it's not the same in the Western Conference. I think that the Clippers and the Timberwolves and the Warriors are all hanging around that like 6-7 spot. So I think that there are some legit playing teams in that like 7-8 in the West. But the 9-10 games are like, I might not even watch. Like, seriously. Right. It's because those teams are not making the playoffs. I don't think so.
And the Western Conference has gotten so good that while I scoffed a few weeks ago, I may have to come back with a big apology when you were like, hey, Memphis could make the play-in. Like, that's really on the table now.
It really is.
They play against the Clippers tonight, and if it's a bad result, and then you look at their schedule going forward with the way they have played post-All-Star or post-trade deadline, and Ja Morant still being unavailable, this time now with a hamstring, like, who knows? Who knows who could end up in those 7, 8, 9, 10 games in the Western Conference. In the Eastern Conference, as we have talked about, it's like, I mean, you feel like either of the 2 teams that get there at 7 or 8 are just getting fed to the Wolves anyway, because they're drawing the Cavs and they're drawing the Celtics.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Magic would be the toughest out in that sort of playing bunch in the East, but I have to say something, and we'll talk about this team at length later, but I'm not so sure that 3 seed is locked up in the East, bro.
Well, given what has taken place recently, I understand your reasoning behind that. Because not great. Like, look, it's a bad run for us. We're both down bad. That's why I'm wearing a Memphis Tigers jersey today. I need them. I need them winning.
Who do they play today?
I need a Colorado State. I need a win in my life, Jacoby. I can't take this. I can't take it anymore. I need a win. All right, let's get to what took place this week. The other huge story outside of basketball by a wide margin is the Celtics getting sold. And you and I don't have some kind of intense level of expertise. You could certainly go listen to Bill and Chris Mannix chop it up about this, both of them very close to the situation. I will just say, in between listening to them and then reading the articles yesterday, the one thing that stands out, the first thing that stands out to me, obviously, any casual observer of this that doesn't know the ins and outs unless you hear it from somebody, is the number. That number is just enormous. I mean, the idea that they got sold for more than the Commanders is crazy. And then the other thing that I didn't particularly understand was the number as compared to what Matt Ishbia got the Suns for. But Ishbia got the arena, and Ishbia got a WNBA team. And like there was a lot more involved in what they, like this guy just got the team. And not only does he get the team, what is so crazy is the idea that there's this story that comes out yesterday with a press release saying that Wyc Grousbeck is going to run the team for 3 years. And it's like he didn't really want to, from what I gathered from what Bill and Chris were talking about it, he didn't really want to give up the team. The guy that thought he was going to get the team, this Pags guy, was super upset about it, put out like a 5-paragraph statement about it yesterday. But there was some kind of rift between the Grousbecks and him, and then so they found another buyer, and then this guy, who this private equity guy, puts up $6 billion, but the $6 billion guy is going to let Wyc run things, yet he's the like that is honestly, who knows the way that's going to go, but like that feels like the best thing ever. Like imagine if you sold your business, but the thing you love about having the business is not the bills of the business, but rather just being a part of it and getting to make the decisions, right? Like that's the juice. That's what you love to do. And if you said, all right, I'm going to sell this to you at this wild price and I get to run this feels like what Cuban thought he was going to get to do. And next thing you know, Luka Doncic is gone, right? He has no say in anything. Like, I don't know the way this works because they've got monster decisions to make. They got a $500 bazillion payroll, and they got all these guys making all this money. And it's like the guy who everybody loves, who's been running the team and certainly been willing to spend to create this thing. Like, what happens when those, and that's when I guess that will be the Rubicon, as they say. It's like, what happens when it's time to pay up? Or there's like a big decision that needs to be made about Drew Holiday or Sam Hauser or Al Horford or any of these guys, and the guy footing the bill feels differently than the guy that used to foot the bill, but still is the guy that's the governor. Like, there's still, in the end, one guy that makes decisions. And so the whole thing seems very strange to me. But, hey, congrats to him. If you could sell your team and still get to run it, we'll see how it works out, but it seems like a dream deal.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure one of the things that's interesting about this sale is they sold high as a franchise, not just historically, but currently. The Celtics are in a great spot. Like, yes. That's the thing about this new ownership group. Like, when you buy the Suns, there's obviously famously moves that were made and things that needed to improve. And they took a couple big home run swings and missed terribly. But usually when a franchise is for sale, it's not turnkey like this. You've got your stars, your all NBA guys locked in. You've got a successful roster for 3 or 4 years. And I'm not sure that all billionaires are smart and deserve it, but I think that's a safe assumption that if you've acquired yourself $1,000 million, $1 million is a lot of money, but you've done that 1,000 times over with business moves that you probably know what you're doing. And somewhere at some point, someone after you buy an NBA team is in your life and says to you, listen, every new owner that has done this before, the 50 billionaires that came in and bought NBA franchises before you have all messed up by making big moves and big swings in the first year or two. So maybe you break the mold. You know what? I think if I have that data as a billionaire that just spent $6 billion on a team, I would say, you know what? This has gone wrong so many times that maybe I should just keep this structure in place and have this transition be as seamless as possible in terms of decision-making power. That is how I read it. It was just like a smart move. It's like, this thing is going well. I now own it. Let me not make changes and just allow it to exist and build value the way it has.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, right? Like that. I think Wyc Grousbeck, from what I gather, Wyc Grousbeck and the guy that bought the team love the Celtics so much. Like, it's different than buying an asset. Like, this is a passion. This is their team. This is what they care about. Because you say that, like, you know, it's not like Matt Ishbia grew up a Phoenix fan, right? Or that, you know, and that was one of the things that we did love when Mark Cuban was like, that was one of these great stories in sports history. A guy that sat in the upper deck as a season ticket holder, happened to build broadcast.com, and like, the guy that's sitting in the stands, almost like a movie, the guy that's sitting in the stands, man, if I ever had the money to run this team, I'd do it different, right? And so he cares deeply about that. And you say you would think that these guys would learn lessons. They never do. Like, it's like, maybe Matt Ishbia, like who is a basketball guy. Maybe he's looked and seen in the past. Or maybe Patrick Dumont. And next thing you know, he's traded Luka Doncic. It's like, wait, what happened here? You know? Like, they never learned. It would be like, it's almost like, hey, I want to make sure that whoever I sell this team to doesn't walk in and be like, you know who, you know what? I just don't think Tatum's a guy that can, you know, I know he got us over the hump once, but I don't think that we're winning multiple championships with Tatum as our guy. You know, you don't want somebody to have some goofy opinion and be like, you know, I don't know about paying that kind of price for Jaylen Brown or whatever else. The other thing is, it feels like, hey, the number's about to get like super extraordinary regarding the cost of this team. I'm going to stick around and run this thing until we're not good anymore. Right?
That's what I mean?
Yeah. I want to still be able to, like, we still got a chance at a trophy, and I still want to be there, like, holding it. Right? Well, I'll sell the team, but I don't want to sell until I'm sure that we can't. I'll be out of this when you got to rebuild.
Well, it was interesting. Last year, we had all, knew about the Mavericks, and they sold the team, and Cuban was still involved. And it was like a similar sort of press release to this, but there was someone noticeably absent when they won the Western Conference Finals.
Right.
And it was a large group of people in that ownership group, and Mark Cuban was not standing in that group at that time. Yep. And I have a feeling that won't be the case if the Celtics were to win the Eastern Conference. Somebody tells me that Wyc would be right there, along with the new owners.
And the other thing is what a new owner typically wants to do. A new owner wants to come in, and they want to do their own thing. They want to build their own roster. They want to get their own GM. They want to get their own right? You want to me, if I'm a Celtics fan, I am thrilled that a guy comes in and it feels like, okay, this is not going to be instability. This is not going to be, I want to do my own thing, because everybody wants to do their own thing because you don't get credit for the old thing. Right?
Yes.
You get credit for the new thing. You get credit for what you did. You get credit for how brilliant you are, right? And so you want to show, like, I'm the guy that can take this to the next level. I'm the guy that can do that, right? And so then you look at sometimes, like with the rosters or even the management, in the case of, say, what happened with Dallas, like in many cases you look at it and you go, bro, there's very little semblance of what used to be, right? Like they're trying, like that whole Mark Cuban, Donnie Nelson, like they've kind of cut the cord on a lot of that. And so the thing that you fear, especially when you're good, like it's the juxtaposition between the Mavericks and the Celtics. You look at it and you go, man, I just don't want things to be radically changed. I don't want to have, like we got a good thing going here. We got it. And boy, that the other guy that didn't get the team, his sour grapes, he threw in right at the beginning of his statement. Like basically, hey, you could have had us. And I think the statement was luxury tax be damned. He's like,
oh, yeah. Well,
so now he's setting it up. So, like, if these guys don't spend like crazy, be like, see, that's what you got. You knew you were going to get some penny pinchers. I would have spent anything to keep making this team awesome, and I didn't get the team. And so now he's setting himself up for, right, being able to be critical if.
it's hard. Well, if they go to the NBA Finals, I think that the Celtics fan will be very, very happy with the new ownership. And there's two things I will say before we move on, because if you want Celtics talk, you can always listen to Bill's podcast. I will say that sometimes in life, it's nothing to do with the NBA or just like, this is more just like in life. Like people ask me for advice, and a lot of times, I think the best advice is this: is like, you know what? Don't do anything. Don't call him or her. Don't try to make a move. Don't write that email. Don't do anything. Let it play out. And I think that's what new NBA owners should do. But you don't get credit for not doing anything.
Right.
They want to be the new owners that come in and make the team better and make some moves. And the fan base says, thank God we have Chris Vernon, the billionaire, who came and saved the team. We love him so much. And they want that adoration and attention. But honestly, like objectively as a consultant, if someone bought an NBA team and called my phone, I would say, do nothing. Just let it play out. It's almost like giving a trust fund to a kid that you don't give them like any access to it until they're 30 years old. It's like you just do nothing. And then when you get the lay of the land, then you can start making moves. But yeah, Celtics.
Yep.
They're the same to me. Doesn't change my life whatsoever. If someone else owns the Celtics now, guess what? Doesn't change my life at all.
The only thing that will change your life and will change all of our lives as NBA fans is this makes it infinitely more likely, in my opinion, that we are going to hurtle very quickly towards expansion. That number is so crazy that once that number came in, once you see a value at $6.1 billion, it's like, hold on now. Like all of these guys are going to be like, yeah, I'm fine with that, right? We'll revenue share, and like they don't get a piece until whatever. And like, because as they say, the price of the brick goes up. And it's like, dude, if the Celtics, yeah, okay, fine. Maybe these new franchises aren't that, but like, that is an extreme number. And it's like, okay, if you want to put a team in Seattle, you want to put a team in Vegas, here's the price of the brick now. And it's like, good grief. Like, we're going to get two more teams for sure. And probably sooner than later because of this Celtics sale. And that will affect us, like just as fans, because you add two more teams to the mix, it's going to affect everybody.
Absolutely.
Let's get to Love and Loathe. All right. So the team I loved this week, I swear, I don't do this on purpose. This is just, it's crazy the way it's played out. But unfortunately, Memphis plays against the Clippers tonight. And the Clippers are the team that I loved this week.
Yeah, good reason to.
I mean, and because they made me look good. Because you proposed to me on a How's That Sound on Tuesday. You proposed to me about how well James Harden was playing and about how, hey, don't look now, but James Harden's been cooking and the Clippers and, you know, and whatever. And I said, look, it's not on the basis of James Harden. I've been through those concert dates when it comes playoff time in terms of the box score, but it is about Kawhi Leonard. And if you told me that there's a healthy Kawhi Leonard and that he's going to be a version of himself that is towards peak form, then yeah, they're scary. And then they went and played Cleveland, and he was by far the best player on the floor in a game against a team that has had the best record in the NBA thus far. Ty Lue his back's been hurting, so Brian Shaw had to coach him.
Yeah.
Jeff Van Gundy had a family emergency.
It was just confusing watching that game. I was like, what is happening?
So those guys weren't there, but they end up beating the Cavs. And not only do they beat the Cavs, which very few teams have done. I know the Cavs lost again since then, so maybe it doesn't look as good. But they beat them by double digits, and Kawhi Leonard was 12 for 19 for 33 points, 7 rebounds, 4 assists, 4 steals. He's on the perimeter. Zubac, on his birthday, no less, has 28 and 20 against a team that has a very formidable front line. Then you got these guys coming off the bench, and Bogdanovich gives you 20. Derek Jones Jr. gives you 10. Even when they bring off Ben Simmons, every time they bring off Ben Simmons, anybody that's watching is like, damn, man, I totally forgot about Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons with his 0 for 1 in 12 minutes, but he's plus 17 in the box score, right? Because they're just long, they're athletic, they're totally veteran-laden. And I said on Tuesday, I said, look, no matter who they play, I promise you, they're not getting swept and they ain't getting 4-1. And that was on the basis of just having some savvy vets and Ty Lue and Jeff Van Gundy. You watch them in that Cavs game and you're like, hold the phone. If they get this Kawhi Leonard, they are mega dangerous to anyone.
I mean, if Norm Powell comes back and returns to form, and then you start looking at it, you're like, wait a second. We've got Zubac, who is sort of like Sabonis gets celebrated for not being celebrated and being consistent. You know what I mean? Like, he's like, you can just put him in for a double-double. Like, quietly, Zubac is that as well. Like, Zubac is one of the most consistent performers in the NBA. You will not see a 6.3 for 12 from Zubac. You just don't see it. And he is so consistent, and he anchors the defense and offense in the middle. And James Harden he's not the Rockets' James Harden, but his game has matured, and his decision-making is at a point where you could trust him with the ball, trust him to run an offense for himself and for others, and he can still get you on that step back.
Oh, and he makes Zubac so much better.
Yeah.
Like, you got to give Harden credit for that. I know he shot 5 for 18 in that Cavs game, but he still got you 22 points and 9 assists, and it's just the way he runs the offense and the fact that he can run that pick and roll with Zubac and find him.
I love Zubac, I love Harden, and I love Powell, what I've seen from them this season. And I just wasn't ready for the Kawhi Leonard that we saw against the Cavs. Because he was his robotic, I'll take one dribble, square my shoulders. Doesn't matter if you're 7'6" in front of me or 5'6" in front of me. I'm going up and I'm putting that thing in the basket. And I'm not going to make a face. I'm going to jog back. I'm going to get a steal on defense and do it again. Like he scored on all three levels. And it was a vintage Kawhi performance. And if you're a Clippers fan, you just hope it's not a vintage Kawhi after game 2 of the first round. He just decides he doesn't want to play anymore. And then he's in a suite, you know?
Yep. Zubac's a great quote after the game. He's first you had everybody talking positively. You had James Harden talking about returning to an all-star level, and he said, I never doubted it. I knew this was coming. You have Zubac saying, we're not trying to get statement wins. We're trying to get wins, get as many wins as we can. We can play against anyone when we're at our best, and I think we showed that tonight. That's the best team in the league right there, the best record in the league. And Zubac, as I mentioned, had 29 and 20 on his 28th birthday. I mean,
God, 29-20.
Yeah, look, and so that's about
against Mobley.
And
Mobley
I know,
and Allen.
And they're asking, is that a statement win? And he's like, no, it's not a statement win. It is 100% a statement win, right? That when I have talked about, I don't know what to take from all these games. Like that was one that we actually got the teams playing against each other. And I thought that was very instructive in understanding how truly dangerous the Clippers can be. And how if you are one of these top 4 seeds, the last thing I'd want is to see them come in. If they can get that Kawhi, good luck.
That's what it is. It's that Kawhi.
Yep.
Because they've been good without Kawhi. They've been good with Kawhi, but that Kawhi puts them in a whole nother level. A whole nother level. That was really impressive. The team I love this week is, listen, it's not hard to just look at the team that's got an 8-game win streak and say you love them. And I do want to be fair about the Houston Rockets and their win streak, because let's not forget, it's 2 against the Pelicans, Magic, Suns, Bulls, Sixers, Magic. Cavs are in there. That's
I think you still got to give them credit because these teams are dropping weird games every night.
Yes.
Right.
I love FanDuel. I use the FanDuel app almost every single day. But I've turned my attention to the tournament because the NBA right now is just so unpredictable.
Impossible.
That I have turned my $5 bets towards the teenagers instead of the grown men being paid to play basketball. But back to the the Rockets it's not what you do, it's how you do it. And in those 8 games, only 2 of them were close. And those were the games against the Sixers and the Bulls. And on the streak, they're second in defensive rating. They're shooting 37% from 3 on the streak. Over the league, they're 4th in defensive rating. And they're 1st in offensive rebounds, which I think is really helpful for them. I think that when they were without Van Vliet, you in particular sort of pointed out how important that was. And since he's back, he's not like lighting it up, but he's just setting it up.
Hey, but look at Green.
Yes.
Look at what Jalen Green needs him the most, right? You just need that structure and let Green go be the scorer. You know what I mean? But here's the guy that can settle everything down. Here, it just needs to be organized. And when it's organized, bro, he can really put the ball in the basket. And so they needed Van Vliet bad. Like it was an outsized importance. Again, ad nauseum I talk about this. It's not the player, it's how the player affects the group. Right?
Yes.
And Van Vliet has a very outsized importance on the group.
And I also think Jabari Smith does as well.
No question.
Because it's just one of the things that this team doesn't have is shooting. And Jabari Smith isn't going to light it up from 3, but he's spreading the floor. You have to respect his, 15 to 18-foot jump shot because he's pretty good from there. And it just helps them a lot with what they're trying to do. And I'm looking at this team, and one of the things I found so interesting and sort of like inspiring about them is their highest paid players are Van Vliet, Dylan Brooks, and Steven Adams. Like,
well, I mean, the bill hasn't come up. The bill hasn't come up yet, but I mean, they've signed Şengün, they've signed Jalen Green. Like those guys have signed extensions.
But I would say like pretty good deals for the two of those guys.
No question.
You know what I mean? Like I would say now that their value is higher than when they signed that just 4 or 5 months ago.
Hell yeah.
And
look, how much when we're going to look up and guys are getting paid $70 million a year, those are going to look incredible.
But when you are the 2 seed in the Western Conference and your top 3 paid players, you could literally do without.
Yep.
Not bad.
Not bad.
Not bad.
No,
it's not bad. That's the team I love this week.
No, they're going to go through these playoffs. Whatever happens. This is going to be their first go round. Whatever happens. And they're going to be able to look at that and they're going to be like, all right, here's what we want to build out around. The same way that Oklahoma City looked at it and said, all right, Josh Giddey's not essential. Like we know we're going to have to, the bill's going to come up on Shea. The bill's going to come up on Jalen Williams. The bill's going to come up on Chet. Here's the guy that's not essential to what we're going to be doing. And the same thing is going to take place with Houston. Or they might take a couple of the pieces and cash in and then just decide we're going to do a 2-for-1, a 3-for-1. And next thing you know, they're taking Jalen Green, Tari Eason, or whatever and getting another guy that fits, or they're moving off of. So this is, I think what's going to happen is these playoffs and what they look like when they get there are going to be very instructive in deciding, all right, what is our core? Who are the 3 that we're committing to and that we're building out around? Because I still think that's, because again, it's going to be too expensive to have, they've got an abundance of young talent. You know what I mean? An abundance of young talent. I mean, and Reed Shepherd just got drafted, 3rd overall, just a year ago, and he doesn't even play.
Well, I think you made a good comparison with the Thunder because, Chet was hurt obviously last year, and that played a lot into what I'm about to say, but they couldn't rebound for shit last year.
Right.
Like they just couldn't. And if you're watching the playoffs, it's like they got the defense, they got the scoring, they just could not get rebounds. And that's why you bring in someone like Hartenstein. It's like, you know what? He's going to get us rebounds on both ends of the floor. And with a healthy Chet and a healthy Hartenstein, and you swap out our defensive guy, Giddey, who you can leave alone on offense, for Caruso, they've trimmed around the edges and made plays. And we'll talk about this in the offseason, but I think the Rockets are going to do something. They're not going to like trim around the edges and fix the margins. I think they're going to cash in, as you mentioned, some of their young stars and bring in a superstar. But that's the team I love this week. Shout out to the Rockets.
Team that I loathe. I'm sorry, Jacoby. But what are the Knicks doing losing to the Cavs and the Hornets?
bro.
I mean, that is
the Spurs. The Spurs. I wish.
Oh,
they
I'm
lost
sorry.
to
I'm
the
sorry.
Cavs.
What did I say?
I wish they lost to the Cavs.
I looked down at my notes because I had Clippers, Cavs, the Spurs, and the Hornets. I mean, there's levels to this. I mean, come on, bro. Like, all right. My team lost to Portland. Portland has actually been, like, good. You know what I mean? Like, they've been really good. In fact, they've been better than the Grizzlies over the last 20 games. So that one, it's embarrassing because you can fancy yourself as a playoff team versus a non-playoff team. But, like, these teams are, I thought, actively trying to lose, and you got Mamu'd.
Verno, let me say this.
You can be a shell of yourself to a limit in the absence of Jalen Brunson. You can't lose to the Spurs and the Hornets without Jalen Brunson. Come on. There's levels.
Do you remember? So I'm watching this game between the Wizards and the Nuggets, and it's still too close for comfort towards the end of the game. And Jamal Murray hits a shot, either tied it or put the Nuggets up, with 4 or 5 seconds left. And you're sitting there going, this is where the Nuggets win. And then, I don't know if you remember, Jordan Poole just pulls up from 35 feet for no reason and wins the game, right? And it was one of those games, the Nuggets should never lose to the Wizards. The Wizards are tanking. They're terrible. But you know what? Jordan Poole hit a crazy shot. They took it a little too easy. It got close at the end. They gave them an opportunity to win. That's not the Knicks' losses to the Spurs and the Hornets this week. They got waxed by the Spurs and Mamu. And then you would think 2 days after losing to the Spurs without Fox and Wemby, you would think this team before the game would have a huddle and say, listen, guys, let's not do what we did 48 hours ago again with the Hornets. And again, I want to say to you, this was not a close game. I didn't watch because they weren't even close.
Okay,
it was not a close game. They're not even being competitive against teams. They're not trying to be competitive.
Okay, so here's the crazy thing. The first thing that went through my mind when I'm seeing this outcome was, I bet Tibbs made a statement, said, all right, guys, fine. I'm going to show you what happens when you guys play lower minutes. I'm going to show you what happens when you play lower minutes. And then you're going to understand, he made a statement. You're going to understand why you guys play the minutes you do. Because, everybody wanted you, Bridges, you came to me, Shamit can do it. Oh, this guy can do it. This guy can do it. Fine. I'll do it your way. Here, you guys want to get a little load off your legs? Fine, I'll do it your way. Nope. Anunoby, 37 minutes. Towns, 35 minutes. Hart, 39 minutes. Deuce, 35. Everybody played huge minutes in a 17-point loss to the Hornets.
It's disgusting.
What?
But they didn't even make the Hornets call timeout. They didn't go on a 9-0 run to get it to within 7 and make them call timeout and have the Knicks fans in Charlotte cheer. They were never close. They didn't make a run. They didn't do anything. It was they threw the game.
They literally played playoff minutes too because they had 3. They played 8 basically, except for the last 2 minutes of the game. Shamit. They didn't have a non-starter play 20 minutes. Shamit played 19 and was horrendous.
Oh, God.
He's not helping Bridges' case, where Bridges is like, hey, guys like Landry can really help us. No, they can't.
No.
All right. Precious played 17 minutes and Campaign played 16 minutes. So they played short roster and still lost by 17. By the way, Spurs loss, Charlotte loss. I know that you might be so despondent that you have not looked. It's Wizards. The next game is a win. Bro, if they lose San Antonio, Charlotte, Washington,
if they lose to the Wizards,
unbelievable.
If they lose to the Wizards, I'm canceling my MSG subscription and I'm taking that money and I'm giving it to Yes, and I'll be a Nets fan.
No, Gotham. Didn't you tell me it was Gotham?
My Gotham Sports app.
Gotham.
All right. The only person that hates New York basketball apps more than me is you. Couldn't get into the Knicks game. Should
we worry that the Knicks are only 3 games up on the Pacers?
Thank you for bringing that up. That's a real thing. Like, you would think with however many games are left, like 12, 13,
right,
that 3 games would be insurmountable. Like you said earlier in this pod, you were like, the 1, 2, 3 in the East are locked up. And I felt that way since it was warm. Since it was like Halloween, it felt like those 3 spots were locked up. It was like Thanksgiving table. I was like, well, 1, 2, 3 in the East are all, they're all done. Well, guess what? It's possible. If this Brunson thing doesn't go well and they keep playing like this and they lose some, it's possible that they end up in the 4 seed, which in the first round I don't think is so bad. But I think if the Knicks draw the Bucks in the first round, they're not getting out of it. I think they could beat the Pacers, and Pacers are kind of all over the place.
The Bucks
they could beat the Pistons.
The Bucks have stunk recently.
They don't though.
Hold on now. You'd rather play Cleveland in the second round than Boston, wouldn't you?
Yes.
So it's not the worst thing in the world.
Fair. I just the Bucks thing is what scares me. I want to get out of the first round. And we won't bog this thing down with like Knicks minutia, but like I don't think that OG Anunoby is the answer for Giannis Antetokounmpo. There's no answer for Giannis Antetokounmpo, but like there are some are better than others, and like a combination of like Bridges, Cat, and OG against Giannis is disgusting.
Team that you loathed.
Where am I? You know what? I have to say it. It's the Cavs.
Oh.
It's the Cavs.
Why?
Like, it was one thing. Here's what it is. And again, like, we've already discussed how the March results are just goofy. Like, this is just goofy, the stuff that's happening. Like, last night's game, the Laker game was just, like, insane. And, like, you can't put too much into this. And I'll say that with all the caveats. But losing to the Magic was like, all right. Paolo had a great game, and they played really good defense. And it seemed like their physicality slowed the guards of the Cavs. And then the Clippers game, as we've discussed, there's something there, And then the Kings game. It was just like, the Kings, they made a lot of shots down the stretch. And the Cavs were sort of up in all these games. I believe they had a double-digit lead in all 3 of these games. And it just felt like after their long win streak, they just like kind of assumed that they would make a run and win these games and didn't focus and concentrate down the stretch. And I'm not concerned about the Cavs. And I'm only saying they're the team I loathe because I didn't want to do the whole pod without recognizing the best team in the Eastern Conference has lost 3 straight. But there are some indications that size and physicality can slow down Mitchell and Garland. And I think that's something to keep an eye on in their playoff matchups. If you get into them and you're physical with them, even if you foul them and you just sort of like don't let them operate the way they want to, you can beat this Cavs team in a 7-game series.
I will say it did dawn on me, especially with the Clippers thing, like, did they get LA'd? Did they, they got 55 wins. They've been in the Cleveland weather. They went out to L.A. and they probably just said, you know what? We're going to enjoy being the best team in the NBA. And then there's a hangover associated with such things. We'll give them at least a chance that took place. I have seen it in the past. I've seen it in the past where a team just does not look as much like themselves as they have. And it's like, next thing you know, there's like a TMZ, these guys are walking out of
Darius Garland hanging from a chandelier in Hyde or whatever.
The whole team is walking out and getting in a Sprinter van.
Yeah. Right? And again, to be fair, they are the number 1 seed in the East.
Right.
So it really is about, they rested Garland against the Kings. It is
what it is.
If we lose 3 games in a row or win 3 games in a row, it doesn't really change our ultimate destiny. So there's only so much you can take away from a March 3-game losing streak to a team that's guaranteed to have the number 1 seed.
Player that I loved. Oh, well, this is because you and I were texting through it the entire night earlier this week. And I know that he has gone back to the bench, but I have to shout out Obi Toppin. That game against the Minnesota Timberwolves was absolutely outrageous that he had. And one of the things that we talked about over the years is the whole, I always respect guys, the whole stay ready so you don't have to get ready is the thing that Tony Allen used to always say all the time about guys that are sitting on the bench and then they get their opportunities. So he gets his opportunity and he plays 45 minutes in the game. Not only does he hit the game-winning shots, he gives you 34 and 10, 12 of 19 from the field, 7 of 10 from the three-point line, then goes right back to the bench and plays 22 minutes and plays 17 minutes. So I went back and looked, and I was like, man, when was the last time Obi Toppin even got to play 30 minutes in a basketball game? He played 45 minutes in that game against the T-Wolves. So you go back and look, and it's just littered with 17s, 16s, 15s, maybe a 23 is in there, right? Like these are the minutes that he plays. He plays between basically 15 and 23 minutes in these games. Except you go back to February 12th, and you see that he got to play 33 minutes. Now, it was against the Wizards, but he played 33 minutes. And he had 31 and 10. Anytime that Obi, and then you can go back further. It's like anytime the guy plays like huge minutes, he has this crazy ass production. Shouts to Obi Toppin. He is the ultimate stay ready so you don't have to get ready. I don't understand it. And I get it. It could be a chicken or the egg thing, right? The reason he gets to play more is because he's cooking. Is because he's cooking. But I'll be damned. The guy, when he plays big minutes, the guy has these like huge games. And he was absolutely hilariously unbelievable in that T-Wolves game, banking in the three and then hitting the corner three, which the only thing I could liken it to, and this is only going to be for an older generation, is when we were kids and we played double dribble. And you would go down the court, and you know how the guy like fades out of bounds.
Well, he would you could jump in the air for a jump shot, turn towards your basket, turn towards the other basket, turn towards your basket, and then before you hit the ground, shoot on the basket that you're going for.
That's what his corner three reminded me of against the Wolves this week. So shouts to Obi Toppin. The guy goes, because it's also awesome. All of his buddies are texting him, all his family are telling him, and he's responding. See what happens when they let me cook?
Exactly. It's like, I will say, you hinted at this, but he is slated to play 15 to 23 minutes in every single game. But if he goes 3 for 3 from 3, that is when the minutes go up. So it is like, it's not just if you give him the opportunity, he will score 30. It's more like if he gets hot, he gets 30 minutes and then he scores that many. But that's a good pick. Shout out to Obi Toppin. I'd never really loved him as a Knick, but he's found a good spot for himself in Indiana in a career. We'll pick up the pace a bit. And I wanted to shout out this guy because he had a slow start to the year, and his team is one of the stories of the NBA. And rightfully so, Cade Cunningham is getting a ton of the credit for the success of the Pistons, and he deserves it. But I just want to be very clear. This is not a single-handed franchise turnaround. It wasn't like Cade Cunningham started putting up triple doubles and the team started winning. Jalen Duran is the player that I want to shout out because he was a high draft pick. He's huge. Verno's showing his Memphis shirt right now. And Duran, he's not gonna go 7 for 7 from 3 like Obi Toppin and score 30 or whatever, but he is a double-double machine. And he's got some really good chemistry with Cade on pick and rolls and dives. And Cade has hit him for more lobs, it feels like, in the past month, in the past 3 years of them playing together. I'm just really impressed with him. He's got 7 double-doubles from 10 games this month. And I started looking back. And again, he's not a jump shooter, so this isn't that impressive of a stat. But I was looking at his year as I was prepared to celebrate him on this pod. He has 5 games all season long shooting less than 50% from the floor. And again,
it's all
dunks and layups or whatever, but still, that's pretty impressive to be less than 50% from the floor in only 5 games. And he's been healthy pretty much all season. I just really love this team and what they're doing. And I think that people talk about Cade a lot and they say Beasley's been shooting well. But I think that Beef Stew and Duran are doing a lot for them on both ends of the floor that aren't celebrated enough, which is why I wanted to give them a shout. And I also want to say that this Pistons team is without Jaden Ivey, your guy.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And like that's, I mean, he's in theory is their number 2 offensive option, and they've been without him for months. They'll be without him for the season. So you start looking at this team and start projecting forward, a couple off-season roster tweaks, and you get a healthy Ivy back, and things can start happening.
Yep. Player that I loathed. All right. Well, look, we have been over the moon with the Cavs all year long. You just listed them as a team you love. Look, we got to take our opportunities. It's the only time we could say anything bad about them all year. And not that we wanted to, but it is what it is. They're losers this week. And so their best player's got to be the guy that I loathe. I mean, make a shot, bro. Donvan Mitchell, who has come back from injury. Like, they need him to be back to being great because he's come back and, like, it's been rough stuff. You had 8 for 17, 9 for 28, and 5 for 18. I mean, that is 17 for 63 in these games, 6 of 29 from 3. Like, he's got to be the guy. Like, we're heading towards the playoffs. We've only got a couple of weeks, of these regular season games left, and you want these teams playing. I got it, right? They might have gotten LA'd. They, maybe it's just he's coming back from injury, but I mean, good grief, Donovan. Like, that is not the all-NBA, oh my God, I strike fear. Like, he's got to be the best player. He's got to be the best player. And you know what I mean? And now we're headed towards the playoffs, and it's like, why are you're playing your worst recently, and I don't want to see that. So flip it around, Donovan.
Well, people always talk about.
And by the way, I'm a massive Donvan Mitchell fan. Have been his whole career. The minute I saw him in Summer League, I fell in love. I went to a game. This is crazy. It's a game I'll never. This dude in Summer League walks in, plays against Memphis. He had 10 steals. It was like you had taken a 10-time NBA All-Star and put him out on the court. Like Kawhi Leonard. He's just ripping the ball from people. And I'm like, who is this guy? And there's a guy who was in the front office at the time. His name was Glenn Cyprian. And Sip was one of my buddies. And Sip told me that when he went to go scout at Louisville. And he said, I've never had this happen in all of my years and all the college gyms I've been to. He goes, I was in Louisville, and he goes, Donvan Mitchell, after the practice was over at Louisville, walked up to me, and he said, sir, I saw you sitting over here. He saw his, team polo or whatever. Yeah. And he goes, my name's Donvan Mitchell. Pleasure to meet you. I just wanted to ask you, what can I work on so that I can be the best version of myself and make it to the NBA and become. And he's like, I've never had that happen ever. Like a kid come up to me and whatever. And so I had all these moments young in his career. He's one of my favorite NBA players. And so it hurts me to loathe him this week. But bro, make a shot. Serious.
I think that Jimmy Butler, we all give him the grace of well, he was 1 for 11 in the fourth quarter last night, but playoff Jimmy is coming.
I know.
It's a completely different player, Jimmy Butler, in the regular season, in the playoffs, and he's earned that over time. And I think Mitchell's in that boat. He's in that boat too, where it's you know what? When the lights are the brightest, he'll give you 40. And so I understand why he is the player you load this week. The Cavs were the team I load this week. They deserve it this week. But I think that we will have plenty of time to celebrate them come playoff time, because Donvan Mitchell, he is one of those players, not at the level Jimmy's at, but he's one of those players that shows up in the playoffs for his team. And then mine is easy. Mine is so easy. So a quick personal story. My rec league team, we play Wednesday nights, and we had a game, and this kid hit a fade. We call timeout. We're up by 3. In the timeout, I'm like, we should foul. Let's just foul. Of course, my teammate's like, nah, we're not going to do that. This kid hits a fadeaway 3, takes it to overtime, and we lose the game. And we go to the bar after the game, and we're watching the Knicks and the Spurs, and they put on the audio in the bar, and we're watching this dude, Sandro Mamu. This guy looks like an extra from Sons of Anarchy. He looks like a John Wick villain. He looks like Aaron Baines. He just doesn't look right on an NBA floor. He looks like someone that you would hire as a bodyguard that wasn't really a bodyguard, but they look scary enough that they'll deter any sort of situation security-wise. And he wasn't just scoring on the Knicks. He was hitting threes. He had 2 dunks. He hit another 3. And the worst part about all of it, the thing I loathe about all of it, wasn't that the Knicks lost. It wasn't that this guy had a career night. It was the fact that Flava Flav was involved. Flava Flav from Public Enemy and Mamu, they share a financial manager, so they're friends. And Flava Flav is like, I'll fly out to a game. So Flava Flav gets on an airplane to fly to San Antonio, and Mamu is like, well, my buddy Flava Flav is here. I might as well show out. And then in the post-game press conference, Flava Flav is right next to Mamu as he does his interview like he's one of the Thunder. It was one of the more surreal things I've ever seen. And just to put a cherry on top of how much I hated this night.
By the way, Chuck D is like the most famous Knicks
huge
fan.
Knicks fan. Oh,
it's great. It makes it all so bizarre.
If you don't know, Chuck D is like a very prolific artist, and he has drawn every single Knicks player since like 1975. Like Chuck D is a huge basketball fan.
Amazing.
And instead of being Chuck D's hype man, on Wednesday night, Flava Flav is Mamu's hype man, as he just took down the Knicks. And to put the terrible cherry on top of this shit Sunday, we all know that he's Georgian. He was born in New York City. Born in New York City.
Mamu!
He's the player I loathe. I hope I never see that man again. Ever.
All right. Thing that I loved this week. It's the news that Cooper Flagg's going to play in the NCAA tournament.
Oh, yeah.
Look, you got all these teams losing on purpose, and one of the major reasons is the chance to get who people think could be a franchise-altering star. I saw Cooper Flagg when he was 16 years old. He was the best 16-year-old I've ever seen in my life. I went to a game, Jacoby, and watched this kid have 14 blocks in the game. He is unbelievable. Reclassed, so he's young. He's young for his grade. And now, just put up one of the best seasons you could possibly have as a freshman. And then I was watching the ACC tournament, and I watched him go down, and I watched him go off in a wheelchair, and I was like, oh, my God. And, ankle sprains have all manner of different severity, but it appears that they're going to at least get him out there a little bit in this first round and maybe be able to have him for 2 days from now. And so the fact that we were not robbed of seeing this guy who has generated so much interest on the NBA level is the absolute best. And the only thing I do regret is I told you, you asked me about a team earlier this week, and the second we got off the air, I was like, oh my God, why? I said San Diego. San Diego did take Michigan down to the wire last night.
Sure
right?
did.
Oh, I was so mad because I watched the team in the Missouri Valley Conference, and I have been so invested in a team that I can't believe I didn't talk about it when you asked me. D2 Drake, and I don't know if you know this story, but D2 Drake, DeVries, this guy named DeVries was their coach. They were great last year. Really good Drake season. He ends up getting hired by West Virginia. Interestingly enough, he just got hired away from West Virginia already. This is the state of college athletics. Anyways, he leaves. The whole team leaves. Everybody. This guy, Ben McCollum, who is the coach at Drake, has been an unbelievable D2 coach. Like, wins a national title and, winning percentage in, the 80s. He's dominated. at like Northwest Missouri, something like that, right? They hire this guy, Ben McCollum. He has no players. So he brings his kids from Drake over there. He brings 4 of them. He goes, gets a JUCO. He goes and gets a transfer. But, like, generally, the guys that are playing for Drake are not, like, he just had to rally together a team. And then they ended up winning 30 games and winning the Missouri Valley Conference. And then yesterday, they took down the SEC's Missouri, and now they've got a chance to go to the Sweet 16. Like, when they hired him and then he brought in his team, everybody scoffed at it, and they started calling him D2 Drake. Like, oh, my God. Like, Drake had this really good season, then they lost their coach, and now not only did they hire a D2 guy, and so the whole story is, and there's a great story written a couple weeks ago by my buddy Dan Wetzel. The whole story goes, it's like this amazing moment of what would happen? What would happen if you took a D2 team and you made them play the higher competition? They've won 30 games and now are headed to the next round of the NCAA tournament. Like, Drake is the coolest story ever. And I lamented so much because I was so invested in them. I have them in my bracket going to the Sweet 16. And so when they beat Missouri yesterday, I was like, oh my God, I can't believe that's not the team I talked about. I can't believe it. And I like, dude, latch on to them because it's just the craziest story. It's like a Disney movie.
They've got Texas Tech tomorrow. 6:10.
Good luck, Texas Tech. Good luck.
Well, I'll be opening up my FanDuel app, and I'll put $5 on that action.
D2 Drake.
Yeah.
So good.
This transitions nicely into the thing that I love is, I pay a lot of attention to the NBA.
Yep.
And I also went to NYU, which had like a D3 basketball team that I was not interested in, had no emotional investment in whatsoever. So I'm not a big college basketball fan. But one thing I love is what I call like tourism fandom. I do this with the NHL and the NCAA every year, where right around the conference finals in the NHL, I'm in. And I jump all the way in. And for those 4 or 5 weeks, I'm the biggest NHL fan you know. And for the next 3 weeks, I'm all in on college basketball, and I'm all into taking my FanDuel app out and gambling on teenagers that I know nothing about. I don't know anybody on these teams. I don't know what offensive style they play. I don't know their coach. I don't know their defense. I don't know who they recruited these people from. I don't even know any of the players, but I love just gambling and watching the games. They start at noon, they end at midnight, and you just go on the ride. And you pick a team that you like, and you just take the ride. You were the one that told me the first round was overrated. It's not.
It
is overrated but like I would say last night watching the games, I was pretty shocked. I was just because like there's a lot of big name schools that were going down. Like Coach Cal in Arkansas were winning, and wait, they beat Kentucky, right?
They beat Kansas.
Yeah, Kansas went down. Yeah, Kansas went down. Michigan's getting pushed to the edge. Yep. It was just like, it was a lot of fun to watch those traditional sort of like, I wouldn't call them blue blood, but maybe North Carolina blue blood schools sort of get pushed. And it was just it's fun to watch. And I do think that the first 2 days of the tournament are overrated, which is an important distinction to make. Doesn't mean they're not good. I think they're overrated because the Sweet 16, you'll get better quality matchups. But I really enjoy spending my hard-earned $10 and betting on children that I've never, ever met or know anything about before. It's great.
Fair enough.
It's fun. That's what I love.
Thing that I loathed this week, and we'll just keep this short because we talked about it on Tuesday. And it happened again since we last spoke. Bro, Zion's got to stop playing with my emotions, Jacoby.
What is happening?
Oh, my God. He was awesome. He was so awesome.
What is happening?
He was so awesome. Right after we had talked about it earlier this week, he just goes out and it's like, oh no, this guy is truly, he had played 30 minutes. This is the game at Minnesota. 30 minutes, 29 points, 5 rebounds, 8 assists, 3 steals, hammer dunks. And it's like, dude, come on. Like, yeah, right when I told you at the beginning, I said, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. He he's yanked me all the way back in. I watch him and I'm like, bro, good luck. I'm telling you, he's got a fire hose running down his bicep now. Who is this person? Who is this person?
I thought that because we all watched him at Duke, and he was this just huge prospect, so you got to keep an eye on him or whatever. And we can watch him in a way that you can't really watch Wembanyama because he's in France. And one of the things that I liked about him in Duke, which never translated to the NBA until like that Stan Van Gundy year, but he used to pass. He used to play make for teammates. And in the last few weeks, he's been doing that again. Like those 8 assists are almost as impressive as the 29 points. In 30 minutes, the guy has 29 points and 8 assists. Like, do the math. Like,
dude, that's
really impressive.
I went to Vegas for the in-season tournament last year, and I watched him look like it was like he was running up down the court like a potato sack race, and they got beat by 1,000 by the Lakers. The fact that you could go back and watch what he looked like in that game and look what he looked like this week, it's a different human being. That's not the same. There's nothing about those two players that reminds you of each other. Like, he's barely getting up and down the court. He's all gassed. He's breathing heavy. He's way overweight. This guy looks like a friggin' Marvel character. Seriously.
Well, it's also, you watch the game, you're like, all right, so what is if you're like a scout or a coach and Rudy Gobert, defensive player of the year, Rudy Gobert comes to you and says like, all right, so what should I look for with Zion? Well, every time he touches the ball, he's going to get to his left side of the rim with his left hand and he's going to score every time. And so I'm telling you right now, Rudy, you're the best defensive player on the planet.
That shoulder.
This man is going to get to the left side of the rim. And he's going to use his left hand to shoot, and that's all he's going to do. And is the best player on the planet, knowing exactly what he's going to do ahead of time every possession. All you have to do is stop that. And on paper, it looks so simple.
The problem is you cannot withstand the right shoulder.
Exactly.
The right shoulder puts you into the stanchion.
Exactly.
You can't stand up to it. He's going to create the space, and it's just sheer brute force.
It is. When I watch the games, like when I'm with my rec league team or whatever, the Pelicans are on, I'm like, Zion will have the ball. I'll be like, watch this. He's going to get to the left side of the rim, and he's going to shoot with his left hand. And he'll be on like the right wing, and he'll do it. And he'll spin or up fake, but he's going to get to the left side of the rim with his left hand, and there's just nothing you can do to stop it.
Plus, he's now like his head is completely above the rim on these dunks he's spiking. He's like volleyball spiking these things. I can't.
Let me be negative guy for a second, though.
Don't.
Let me be negative guy for a second. Hamstring. Knee's not feeling right. This is what he does. He's great. He's great. He's great. He's gone. And he's okay. And he's great. He's great. He's great. And he's gone. It's just that's the rhythm of his career, and it's not going to stop.
I want to believe.
It's not going to stop. But hey, why don't you have the Grizzlies trade for him then? Trade away a bunch of young players and a bunch of draft picks. Bring in Zion. See what happens.
Bro, I couldn't.
See what happens.
I would do it in 2 seconds.
Okay.
When was the last time you watched? Don't watch the Grizzlies.
No, I'll tell you.
Bro,
you do that. You'll see a lot of Zion's street clothes
don't
outfits.
Talk to
That's
me.
what you'll see. A lot of outfits from Zion. They'll be throwing fits.
I am so used to watching guys in street clothes. You have no idea. Think anything about my life changes?
So I don't really want to get into my last one in depth because you can read the court documents yourself if you'd like to. And I'm not here to give commentary on gang relations. But the thing I loathe this week is allegedly Adrien Broner is out here stealing millions of dollars from NBA players using rigged dice in dice games.
God.
And I'll just say this. Just karmically, that's not going to work out for you in the long term.
Tough gig.
You're betting 6 figures against people and using rigged dice. You might have walked away with the money and you might have laughed with your best buddy afterwards and said, we just took $1 million from these stupid NBA guys using some fake dice. But over the course of time, that's going to end up getting you.
Yep.
That's going to end up getting you.
That's a deadly game. That is a deadly game.
I just hate it. I learned early in my time in New York City, don't play dice with strangers. Yep. I don't play dice anymore. And then don't play 3-card Monty with the guys in the street because you might win, but you're not walking 3 blocks with that money.
Also, don't buy their blunts.
Yes. I will just say this, that I just hated everything about that. The idea that you're taking 6 figures, even 7 figures from individuals. If you rob a bank, I get it. The bank's got the money. You're taking the money from the system. You're taking it from the man. But when you're taking that kind of money from peers and you're cheating, just karmically, I think that's terrible. And that's the thing I loathe this week.
All right. Last thing before we get out of here. I know you said you were invested in the NCAA tournament. I need you rooting for the Memphis Tigers today. You will love their power forward more than any player, Dane Danger, which is the greatest name ever.
Oh, I like that.
And guess what else I'm going to give you a heads up on?
Who are they playing?
They're playing Colorado State, but get this. Also listed on the broadcast, Jalen Rose.
Oh, yeah. Jalen doing analyst work.
Turn up.
Love to see it. I love to see it.
Turn
because
up.
I like my analysts to be fun.
They say,
I like them to have a good time.
Do you know who I love? And I wonder, I don't know why. Maybe, sometimes you see these guys and they make the choice. Like, if you ever hear, like Tim Legler doesn't want to go and call 1 million games throughout the year or whatever. People are always like, why don't they use legs more or whatever, right? You know who I always like a lot during the NCAA tournament? Greg Anthony. I would like for him to be, I like his voice. I like his commentary. I like him.
He has a little fun too, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm like, I wonder why he's not on a ton of NBA broadcasts. He should be. He's better than a lot of color commentators that we watch.
Well, Verno.
What?
One thing before we go is we put the voicemail number out there. And producer Jesse's going to put it in the chat so we can give it to you again. And we're going to play one voicemail just to finish, just as a palate cleanser. We want to hear from our listeners. Okay. And we heard from you. And we heard a lot of things. So if you want to be on this pod, all you got to do is call 323-389-5091. Leave us a message. Again, 323-389-5091. Leave us a message, and we'll put you on the podcast just like this caller.
Jacoby, Verno, my name's Charles. I needed to call in and tell you about how Jacoby helped save my relationship with my son. See, I'm a Warriors fan, so I'm watching a lot of Warriors games, and at times I can get vocal and yell at the players on the screen because it helps the way that they play. So during a particular game, Buddy Hield was not doing outstanding. So as I'm sitting there, I keep yelling, "Come on, Buddy! Buddy, stop it!" But Buddy is the first thing out of my mouth, and it's loud and it's big. The problem with this is that I have a 12-year-old son, and his nickname that I've called him from the beginning is I call him Buddy all the time. So I would yell Buddy, and it would take him about 3 seconds for him to realize that I'm not yelling at him, I'm yelling at the TV. And so he would be traumatized for that 3 seconds. So I'm having this dilemma in my head. I can't scream anymore. Don't want to traumatize my son. And then the next couple days, I listen to the Mismatch, and David Jacoby reveals that Buddy's name is Trevano. And so from now on, I can yell Trevano, and my son doesn't think that I'm yelling at him because Trevano's not his name, nor is it his nickname. But that revelation helped me save my relationship, helped me keep yelling at the TV screen. So thank you, Jacoby. Much love to you guys. Love the show. Thanks.
Shout to Charles. Just the Mismatch is just
mending
families and changing lives.
Changing lives.
And we were going to sign off, but producer Jesse says we got one more that we have to play.
This is Martin calling from Kansas City. I want to tell you I had the James Harden wine just now, and it was pretty good. If you don't mind wine, that's a little bit bad.
Okay, James Harden wine. Sounds like a 2 out of 5. I won't be checking that anytime soon.
All right, that's going to do it for today's episode of The Mismatch. Thank you to our executive producer, Jesse Lopez, as always. And Jacoby, I'll catch up with you next week.